Hello and welcome. Today is heaven knows, are we still in March? Are we in April? Who cares? I've got my Mad March mascot in front of me and I will be doing some Hare themed artwork in a few minutes. Now, it's been well over a week since we went into lockdown here in the UK and I'm wondering how you're all doing. Perhaps you're at home doing art and craft, perhaps you're writing a book or doing dance or poetry. Who knows? I'd love to hear. Art is one of those few things that helps us reconnect with ourselves in meaningful ways. And at times like these, when nobody knows what day of the week it is or what month we're in, it's incredibly therapeutic to immerse ourselves in art. And for that reason, I hope that this series of tutorials will inspire you in your own creative journeys at home, perhaps using minimal resources. On that note, I was overwhelmed by the response to the recent tea and coffee painting tutorial I did. Many thanks for that. Today I'm thinking mixed media, possibly including tea and coffee. We'll see where that takes us. So for starters, I found a lovely photo reference of a hare that I'll loosely base my work on. Let's place him somewhere safe, out of the way. I found a sheet of really nice watercolour paper as well. And as I said, I'll be doing some mixed media today, so anything goes. Always try and get your reference, whether it's a photo or whether it's an actual live specimen, as close as you can possibly get it to where it is you're actually working on. Now, not going for realistic colours here. I said Mad March here, didn't I? Let's go for some really mad colours. Going to start by very gently marking out where I'm going. Notice I'm using very little pressure here. I'm just sort of tickling the paper effectively. The less pressure you use at this early stage, the less committed you are to the marks that you're making. So give yourself that benefit of being able to get it wrong. Ease yourself into it. It's quite interesting working on a white background for a change, actually. I very rarely work on a white background. Normally I'm painting onto an existing colour of mid-tone mount board or paper. But it's always good to come out of your own comfort zone. Now the whole time I'm looking at this image, I'm looking at tones, looking at shapes, looking at angles of one thing relative to another. So I'm looking at the angle of that ear relative to the angle of the top of the head, for example. It's things like that that are going to help in terms of your draftsmanship skills. So really worth focusing and noticing those sort of things when you're actually drawing. The other thing to notice is where my eyes are looking at any moment. Okay, so you'll notice that I'm looking very definitely back and forth the whole time. A lot of people spend most of their time looking at their artwork as opposed to looking at their reference. It should really be the other way around, if possible. Now, because we've already mapped out roughly where we're going with this, I can quite confidently begin to put in more detail. As an aside, I just wanted to show you up close the skull of a brown hare. You can see how incredibly delicate it is. The other thing to notice is how the eye sockets point in opposite directions. So the field of view is tremendous. It's always worth thinking about the anatomy of a creature when you're drawing it. Now, I always talk about this as a reference for a reason. It is a reference, it's not something you have to slavishly copy. And I'm always keen for people to use their imagination, and follow their expressive instincts as an artist. You know, as an artist, you are not a photocopier, you are not a scanner, you are not a camera. You are an expressive artist. You have every right to do things that are not in the actual image. So really let loose. I'm thinking bright colours, I'm thinking spring, I'm thinking vibrant new life. Right, now let's give it some context, even if it's just extremely loose and impressionistic at this point. Doesn't really matter, it just gives it a context. Few things as therapeutic as sharpening coloured pencils. Notice I'm following through the sort of direction of the fur. Now I'm using a lot more pressure gradually as I'm going. I'm guessing Many of you will have only used coloured pencils in quite a pedantic fashion, maybe something like botanical illustration. This is a very, very different style of working with coloured pencil, obviously, very free sort of style. Notice I'm still varying the pressure the whole time that I'm working. So I'm going to use very little pressure where I want a very light tone, or looking at the dark under the eye, for example, I'm going to use more pressure there for a darker tone. If you're sitting there watching this and thinking, where the hell are those colours coming from? It's a lot to do with sort of thinking, you know, what colours do I actually like? All I'm really doing is looking at the tonal variations, the different tones in this image, looking at the shapes and so on, but translating those into the equivalent tones in other colours. So you end up with something that still makes sense, it still looks like what it's meant to be, but the colours are obviously quite different. Keep spotting colours that I want to include. With whiskers, really feel that energy of the whisker and really follow it through. Like I was saying about the direction of fur, it's the same sort of idea. Just feel your way around a picture. Oh yeah, quite like that orange. Notice I'm sort of picking up the colours from the hare elsewhere in the picture, so it becomes more of a whole. Right, now let's go over to some other mediums as well. Posca pens, lovely bright colours. Where should we start? Now, you might well like to take a piece of scrap paper just to sort of test what colours actually look like just before you actually put them on your work. Posca pens are a type of acrylic paint marker pen, which is to say that they are acrylic paint but in the form of a marker pen. They are incredibly versatile. Poscas come in a wide range of sizes, so we get a huge range of different mark making ability. If they are drying out slightly, you want to just give them a shake, give them a pump, just like you would any other marker pen. The lovely thing about Poscas is that you can smudge them and they take on an almost sort of pastel-like quality. I think a lot of people think that Poscas are only useful for painting rocks with pretty patterns, but actually you can use them for drawing and painting, as I'm doing here. And of course you can layer light colours over dark, just as you can with acrylics generally, which is potentially really useful. Right, now let's go over to another medium. Let's actually go back to the tea and coffee, and this is the coffee that I was using the other day. I'm just going to add a little bit of water into here because it's got quite thick in the meantime. Sponge. Just want to give a very atmospheric sort of background to this. This is actually watercolour paper that I'm working on, so it's going to take quite a lot of moisture. Deliberately leaving a little bit of a lighter patch over this side. Right, now a plastic fork. Okay, I'm going to use this as a tool to scratch into the pigment before it dries completely. We just want to get a little bit of grass texture into that. Being a plastic fork, it has just that little bit of flex in it, just rather like a palette knife has, to be able to control better where you're actually placing it. Now for the really fun bit, let's reuse. For this you want a fair bit of moisture on it. It's actually soaking it up, so I have to, I think, squeeze some of that out. Oops. Now hopefully before it goes on my laptop keyboard, I found a plastic straw. I'm going to use that . Might as well add some more traditional watercolours into the mix. Again, let's try and pick up some of the colours that we've already got. So I'm deliberately adding a bit more water now into the mix. See how loose I'm being with this sort of style as well. Maybe just add back in a touch of highlight here and there. Right, there we go. I think we'll call that a day. Mad March Hare. So there we go, 3 very different styles of hare themed painting. One on the back of an old office file, one on some corrugated card, one actually on watercolour paper. Really hope you've enjoyed the short film and feel inspired to have a go yourselves at home. I would love to hear how you get on. Please do comment underneath the video. If you haven't already done so, do click on subscribe as well. That way I can keep you updated about my channel, about upcoming films and tutorials that I'm working on. Many thanks for watching. See you again soon.